One of these days I'm going to cut out these intros where I actually walk into the table here. That would take extra time that I don't actually have. Greetings, salutations. I'm always greatly amused when some mental midget and neophyte actually attacks me for saying something about Sir Albert Einstein. And then I will politely report back to them very quickly in an expedient manner that I'm actually quoting Nikola Tesla, who called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot, an idiot, a lunatic. That's my favorite one. It was a dinner party. Tesla called Einstein a lunatic. Here, let's get to the heart of the matter. I'll actually post a link to this article below. And this is not really about this article, but it kind of is. The title of the article is Einstein Killed the Ether. Now the idea has come back to save relativity. Ever since relativity came out, and by the way, let's do a side note here on something incredibly important, okay? You need to look up the guy, if you haven't heard of him, Henri Poincaré. That would be Henri Poincaré, Poincare. Actually, 90% of the stuff that people think Einstein was brilliant for was actually stolen from the already existent works of Henri Poincaré. And of course, as Einstein himself said, one of the secrets to success is hiding your sources, quote unquote. And that's because he stole his stuff from Henri Poincaré. But getting back to relativity, ever since relativity actually came out, it has not been reified or reinforced. And people will say, what about GPS satellite correction? Of course, I'll get to that in a second. And I made countless videos on that topic. But ever since relativity came out, support for SAME is actually far, far more on the decline instead of on the incline. So-called GPS satellite correction actually has to do with a specific phenomena that you can look up. It's called electrokinematic effect. Dr. Oleg D. Jefamenko has an entire book about this. It's an established fact. It has to do with the nature of time relative to moving objects. It's purely an electrostatic, magnetic, i.e. electric phenomena. It has nothing to do with proof or validity of relativity, for example, by the way. Neither does people will also point to something else that does not give any credence whatsoever to relativity, and that is the bending of light. During a solar eclipse, it was observed where a star's light had curved due to the sun's gravity. Well, that's because light is a coaxial circuit, and electrostatic acceleration is an established fact. Long before Einstein came around, even Faraday acknowledged this fact, so it's not anything in support of relativity whatsoever. What people keep actually pointing that out to me is, well, this proves relativity, that and GPS satellite correction. And neither one of those actually give credence or support or firms up relativity. But let's actually establish something simple here, because a lot of people don't get really, really heavy into field theory because life is short and we're all worried about paying the bills and feeding the family, right? And a lot of that heavy thinking stuff doesn't really pay the bills. I mean, be completely pragmatic. But let's get to the irreducible facts of things, because simplicity is divinity, and then I'll go immediately back to Nikola Tesla. There is this fact, not my opinion, a fact. There's only two foundations. In other words, like when you're going to build a house, you got to dig a hole and, pour some concrete and some rebar before you build the house on top of it, right? Well, to build a foundation for the correct, or mostly correct, explanation or dissertation of natura naturans, Mother Nature, cosmic mechanics, whatever the hell you want to call it. There's only two foundations you could build it on. One is illogical BS that is based in atomism, yeah, and the other one's based upon the ether. There are only those, and by the way, I said it's not my opinion, it's a fact. Never throughout all of human history has any foundation of cosmic mechanics ever been put forward or advocated for that was anything different than either the ether or atomism. Yeah, there's only ever been these two. Atomism can't work. Atomism doesn't explain light. Atomism doesn't explain instantaneous action at a distance. You know, light is not a particle emission. It's not a photon traveling from point A to point B. Light doesn't have a speed. It's the rate of induction. Nothing emits light. Yeah? Person in the middle of a pond flapping their arms, creating waves in the medium, i.e. the waters, is not emitting anything. They're actually setting up a field perturbation as an analogy. And by the way, all of quantum is based upon, not my belief system, but their well-established statement about themselves. All of quantum is based upon our understanding of light. Well, everything they actually believe or affirm to others and teach about light is absolutely no basis in reality. You can never explain light speeding back up after it leaves a medium like glass or water without breaking the law of conservation of energy. If you actually engage in this sort of atomistic foundation as to the nature of the cosmos, but simply enough as to light, because right above that foundation, whichever foundation you adhere to, whether it be atomistic BS, which is nonsensical and doesn't explain observed phenomena, or that of the ether, you actually can't engage in this breaking the law of conservation of energy. You can't actually explain light. You can't explain the phenomena of light. You can't explain red shift or blue shift if you actually understand that light is an electrical circuit. It is transverse electromagnetic, longitudinal pulse perturbations along the dielectric, i.e. rarefactions, and compressions, i.e. ether perturbations in a longitudinal fashion. And of course, that's all a scalar wave. By the way, everybody keeps asking about scalar waves. What is a scalar wave? Well, you know what electrostatic emission is, like lightning, right? i.e. dielectric. A scalar wave emission or generation of energy, kind of like in a so-called electron microscope, is a point source dielectric emission. Let me actually say that once again, since everybody keeps asking about scalar waves. And scalar waves, of course, have no waves. They have no transverse component. A scalar wave emission, and that's a really horrible thing to call it because it has no wave component, obviously so. Since it's scalar, it's not an EM phenomena. It doesn't have any transverse component. Is nothing other than a point source dielectric emission. Yes, that's what a scalar wave is. Anyway, you can't build a foundation on the cosmos based on atomism because it doesn't actually explain observed phenomena. The so-called dual slit experiment can't be explained accurately, and this is why there's so much contention about it. People always say, what about the Michelson-Morley experiment? Well, first off, it doesn't even qualify as an experiment. Number two, it was on a tabletop. It didn't disprove the ether at all. A limited spectrum experiment like that, incorrectly done, does not disprove the ether. There's actually far more evidence since the Michelson-Morley experiment, which is not really an experiment, much more proof for the ether now than there ever was. Relativity is on the decline, ether is on the rise. Now, see, the most evil word, kind of like if you were to go to a group of atheists, yeah? Go to an atheist anonymous meeting or something. Not that I've ever been one of those. I can't stand atheists. I have really no respect for them at all. I'm not a creationist, not an atheist. I'm a hardcore Platonic monist, i.e. emanationism. The most evil thing you could bring up would be God. Of course, you first have to posit something before you can negate it. The most evil word in science and physics today is ether. But they found, since you can't deny the ether, what they do is they find all these interesting words to get around it. They'll call it dark energy, dark matter, 0-point energy. There's all these... another one, my favorite one is quantum foam. That's another really good one. The ether is absolutely 100% undeniable. If you actually posit the ether as the correct and logical foundation, by the way, people think, well, those people are idiots. I mean, well, what about Nikola Tesla, Faraday, Henri Poincaré, of course, James Clerk Maxwell, Oliver Heaviside, Charles Proteus Steinmetz, on and on and on, and even going back to Sir Isaac Newton. Well, that's old stuff. We're smarter than that now. Every branch of science has always thought they had a firm grasp on reality, and like 30, 40, 50 years later, they're always proven wrong. Always! Every epoch of human scientific understanding always thought they were right, and they're always proven wrong 30, 40 years later. Today is absolutely no different. The ether is absolutely undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable. Atomism cannot explain field theory interactions. By the way, the two most important terms when we're talking about field theory is the term energy and the term field. No branch of current physics, or even that of quantum, has ever defined the term field. Sure it has. Yeah, I'll give you $1 million if you could go show me where any branch of current science has ever defined the term field. Not a field over a period of time with a vector and a given result like the four Maxwellian field equations. That actually defines an effect of a field interaction with a vector over a period of time. I'm talking about a field itself, in itself, by itself. No branch of science has ever, 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 period, not my opinion, not my feeling, not my belief, ever defined the term field. You want to use the ancient Greek word kora. Yeah, never defined a field. Let me actually give you a couple quotes from Nikola Tesla himself, and this is in reference to Einstein. This first one is a hyperbolic statement, not specifically about Einstein. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure, in other words, the structure of the universe, which has no relationship to reality. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. By the way, mental wards, I don't know if you know this or not, but they're full of some really, really intelligent people, but they're not wise. You see, if you don't know the difference between empirical knowledge, i.e. intelligence, and wisdom, then you're not all that smart, but that's okay. You weren't taught this important stuff growing up. You weren't taught this stuff in junior high school, or college. You weren't taught this important stuff, the distinction, differentiation between empirical knowledge and wisdom. Yeah. What Nikola Tesla is saying, of course, is that you could be a deep thinker and extremely intelligent and several PhDs, but you could be a total retard. In other words, a fool. Yeah? And this, of course, is more true today than the nearly 100 years now since Nikola Tesla gave you this quote. This is Nikola Tesla on Einstein and relativity. To say that in the presence of large bodies, space becomes curved is equivalent to stating that something can act upon nothing. I, for one, refuse to subscribe to such a crazy view. Here's another one from Nikola Tesla. Relativity, i.e. Einstein's brain fart, and that's exactly what it is. Einstein's brain fart is a beggar wrapped in purple robes whom ignorant people take for a king. This theory, says Tesla, wraps all errors and fallacies and clothes them in a magnificent mathematical garb which fascinates, dazzles, and makes people blind to the underlying errors. In other words, it dazzles the hell out of stupid idiots. This theory is like a beggar clothed in purple whom the ignorant people take for a king. Yeah, this is a brilliant one. Here's another one from Tesla on Einstein. My conclusions differ from that of Einstein, and to that extent disproves Einstein's theory. My explanations of natural phenomena are not so convoluted as his. They are simpler, and when I am ready to make a full announcement, I will see that I've proved my conclusions. This is a little poem that Tesla gave at a party. He prepared for a party for it's called Fragments of Olympia. Too bad, Sir Isaac Newton, they dimmed your renown and turned your great science upside down. Now a long-haired crank. You see, Nikola Tesla was a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. I call people names all the time, especially if they deserve it. This is really harsh for Nikola Tesla. Now a long-haired crank, Einstein by name, puts on your high teachings and calls them all to blame. He says, matter and force are transmutable, and wrong the laws you thought were immutable. I am much too ignorant, my son, for grasping schemes so finely spun. By schemes, he means nonsense and BS. When he says, I'm too ignorant, in other words, he's too simple. When actually someone back in those times, when Nikola Tesla wrote this, he says he's actually making a humorous reference. Tesla's calling himself ignorant, meaning he's too simple-minded, because his understanding of the universe is simple. It's not convoluted BS like that of Einstein and all the people today. Here we go with another one from Nikola Tesla. The theory of relativity is a mass of errors and deceptive ideas violently opposed to the teachings of great men of science of the past, and even to common sense. Yeah, Einstein is a beggar dressed in the purple clothes of a king and dazzles the people with mathematics that obscures the truth. Since action and reaction are coexistent, it follows the supposed curvature of space is entirely impossible. Yeah, entirely impossible. The scientists from Franklin to Morse, this is another slant on Einstein, the scientists from Franklin to Morse were clear thinkers and did not produce erroneous theories. Nikola Tesla. My followers are of stronger mind. I am confident to stay behind. The point of all of this, and of course there's many more quotes of Nikola Tesla attacking Einstein. is that Einstein, when you dismiss the ether, you have to engage in this sort of, and of course what Einstein's fundamental fallacy is, he's performed privation reification or attribute reification, like a shadow. A shadow's not a thing. It doesn't do things to other things. Sure it is. You stand in a shadow, you get cold. The reason you get cold is because there's no light. But a shadow is not a thing. A shadow still doesn't act upon anything. A shadow is not a thing at all. A shadow is an absence of something, i.e. light. Space and a shadow are absolutely no different. There's no such thing as emptiness. There's no such thing as a shadow. There's no such thing as space. Space is a concept that human beings have given to the absence of something else. Getting into that, and I've done that countless other videos, takes a while longer to do, but space has no properties. It doesn't act upon anything at all. The notion of curved space. We grew up with the Star Trek and Star Wars BS about curved space-time and bending space-time. Space can't be bent because it doesn't have any properties. But if you think you're smarter than Nikola Tesla, you let me know, because then you know you're something special. Well, that's Nikola Tesla. We've since evolved our understanding. No, we haven't. We've actually de-evolved. I said there are only two foundations upon which to build the structure of cosmic mechanics or the correct model of the universe. Atomism or the ether. The only thing that actually explains all phenomena correctly, both light and magnetism, on and on, is the ether. The only one. Atomism, you are left with Mother Nature as a cross-eyed hooker on crack with a bag of bumping particles, and then of course you actually have to have messenger particles that communicate with a... None of this works with particles, because then you have a speed limit, because something is moving from point A to point B. That's what they actually think light is. Light's a photon. Well, a photon is an arbitrary concept with no basis in reality. It's a misappropriation of the dielectric pulse perturbation, rarefaction, and compression of the nature of light. There's no such thing as a photon. Sure there is. No, you're just bought up, brainwashed with that BS. There's no such thing as a frigging photon. It doesn't exist. Light is not an emission. Light doesn't travel from point A to point B. Light has a speed. That so-called speed is a rate of induction. It's the maximum rate of a transverse field propagation, linearly, from point A to point B. What's the maximum rate of induction? Like if I'm going to wave my arms in the middle of a pond, what's the maximum speed of propagation of the medium? I'm not emitting anything by flapping my arms in the middle of a pond. No, I'm actually setting up a disturbance. You can never explain the universe or natura naturanza, Mother Nature, with particles and messenger particles. It doesn't work. Light doesn't work that way either. You also can't create this fallacy of composition, this attribute reification nonsense that Einstein did by talking about bent space. Yeah? It's ridiculous. What the hell are you bending? Space has no properties. And by the way, very, very importantly, no field ever witnessed in any experiments has ever terminated in space. You know the reason for that? Because space is not a terminal. Like energy instantaneously vanished in space, like it was a terminal. Space is not a terminal at all. No. Space is not a terminal. You'll actually find that the people that actually know what the F is going on regarding field theory, people like Eric Dollard, myself, I'm not comparing myself to these people, okay? Eric Dollard, myself, Tesla, James Clerk Maxwell, Oliver, they all had the same thing in common. They rolled their eyes and scoffed at the BS of Einstein. There's a reason why Nikola Tesla called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot, idiot, a lunatic, a beggar dressed in the purple robes of a king, because he is. And everything intelligent that people attribute to Einstein was stolen. Not my opinion, a fact. There's actually 3 books written on this topic. All the important stuff that you think belonged to Einstein was actually stolen from Henri Poincaré. Look it up. But I love it when people attack. But what do you mean you're attacking Einstein like that? I'm sorry you were brainwashed in school to think this guy was something when he was really a dumbass. But Einstein was a dumbass. He was a very intelligent mathematician, and he actually solved nothing important. His Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect was given to him by a false conclusion based upon correct observation and replication of the photoelectric effect. Correct math and correct replication has no bearing on the correct explanation of something. But I mean, just because someone got a Nobel Prize doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I remember our last president got a Nobel Prize for doing nothing. So that tells you how important a Nobel Prize is. Photoelectric effect was not a discovery of his. Yeah, so he didn't discover it. He didn't even explain it correctly. You get a Nobel Prize for completely incorrect conclusions on the photoelectric effect. That was actually by J.J. Thomson. You actually can't believe in atomism unless you're a fool. Or you just believe the stuff here. Well, that guy's got a PhD. Of course he knows what's going on. That doesn't mean anything. There have been doctors in Oxford University for hundreds of years now, teaching all sorts of crazy BS, like bleeding you with leeches and all sorts of insane twaddle. Just because someone has a PhD or a doctorate doesn't mean they know what the hell's going on, doesn't mean they've got a firm bead on how things work. You know, you have to use a logical, discriminating mind to see fact for BS. But most people don't have that faculty. Anyway, I hope you like this video. I'd actually love to drone on this topic for like 100 hours, but people would like roll their eyes in the back of their heads and start to yawn. But it's fun to debate. Fun. Fun for me anyway. Thanks for watching. Hope you like these videos. If you do, you can always click the link below. You tell me how much you hate me. Yeah, if you got a problem with me calling Einstein an idiot, take it up with Nikola Tesla. Because Tesla was right. Einstein was an idiot. Thank you.